Perfect. Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. And of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, see what's coming at you. And today, we're going to talk about a little article that came out a couple of weeks ago. It was sent to me by Desmond Allen. Man, shout out to you for sending this to me and giving me a little inspiration to make a little video. It's on ncaa.org. You can check it out. I'll link it in the description. But it's basically breaking down the FCS, all the FCS teams into different tiers. And I thought it was interesting to see where they slotted some of the teams. And so just for conversation, and also we're gonna talk about my estimated win totals for each SWAC team. So we'll see, how that turns out at the end of the season. So I'm gonna put this out here and hold it till the end of the season and go back and check it. All right. So other than that, man, if you can check out everything else that we have on the YouTube channel, man, and you get more content like this. Hit that subscription button, man. Subscribe and get all the latest SWAC Talk episodes and live SWAC Smoke episodes coming on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. So hit that subscription button and check everything out and rock with us because we enjoy rocking with y'all. Also, man, check out those socials. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Also, you can hit the Patreon to support the show. All money goes directly to the show. Just kind of help us continue to grow and give you better products. So Patreon is SWAC Talk, patreon.com/SWAC Talk. You can hit that up. We have a $3 level and a $5 level. $5 level allows you to provide topics for discussion, either for SWAC Talk or SWAC Smoke. And also, you have the $5 level, which allows you access to member can join the SWAC Smoke Roundtable every month that we're going to try to start rolling out. So that's what the $5 tier gets you. $3 tier gets you it's able to suggest topics and access to a members only group chat. So definitely want to get with that. You can get all of that in the $3 or $5 level. Like I said, $5 actually gets you the access to the roundtable to be on the show itself. All right, so man, with all of that wording is out the way, man. Let's jump directly into this. This was called the way too early FCS tiers for every team entering the 2023 season. And like I said, I'm going to put that in the description, the link to the article. This was written by Stan Beckton on ncaa.com. I said .org, excuse me. ncaa.com is where this article comes from. So this basically breaks down all 127 teams that are in the FCS, not counting Kennesaw State, who is transitioning into FBS. So I'm not going to run through the teams other than maybe the first few teams in the tiers that don't have a SWAC team. I'm not going through all 127 teams because they don't really matter to this conversation. But the first tier was called a step above the rest, and that tier held South Dakota State, who is basically looked at as the team to be number one after winning the FCS title last season. They looking to be a team with not a lot of major losses, and they are looked at as a team who is better than most other teams. The next tier was the Frisco or Bust tier that had North Dakota State, Montana State, and William and Mary. Those three teams are going to be factors to make the national championship game. The potential playoff seed tier list is Holy Cross, North Carolina Central, Southeast Missouri State, Sanford, Furman, Sacramento State, Idaho, and New Hampshire. North Carolina Central is obviously an interesting team on this list because if they win the MEAC, they're going to the Celebration Bowl. If they lose the MEAC, I don't really see, unless they don't lose any other games, any way that they would be a ranked seed in the playoffs. So it's imperative for them to win. And I guess it also depends on what the team does that beats them to win the MEAC. So, if they don't win the MEAC, they have an option to make the playoffs, but I think it's going to take a lot of work for them to get a national seed in the playoffs. So then that leads us to the playoff contender list, and this is where the first two SWAC teams are on the list. And in both of these teams, one team can't make the playoffs, and B, the other team, I don't think their schedule is going to allow for them to make the playoffs if they don't win the SWAC. So basically, I guess in the way that they listed these teams, the two SWAC teams on this list are Florida A&M and Southern. So I'm guessing they are just looking at these teams as teams that they think will be the division champs in the SWAC. And there's a lot to unpack there. Obviously, Florida A&M has a really good chance, providing they beat JSU to make the SWAC championship game. Southern their road is a lot more dicey. I mean, I don't really look at Southern as the favorite going into the season. I think this team has a lot of holes to fill on the lines. And quarterback obviously is going to be, those are two things that line play on both sides of the ball and quarterback play are the two questions to me for Southern. And right now, that makes it hard for me to put them as the team to beat in the West. But this tier is basically teams who in other conferences are solid playoff teams, are teams who have a really good chance of making it. And the two SWAC teams that they put on this list, I don't look at them as that. Everybody has said from the minute FAMU schedule came out that they're a Celebration Bowl or bust. They even feel that way. Southern can't make the playoffs regardless of what kind of record they have. So that was kind of odd to put two SWAC teams there. The next tier is the good but not great tier, and these are teams who should. They're saying this tier is teams that should finish around the 6 or 7 win mark. Again, that's kind of interesting because the first team on this list is Jackson State. 6 or 7 wins for Jackson State. I don't, like I said, my JSU video I made a couple of days ago, people said I got a couple comments, too optimistic on JSU. So I still feel like 6 or 7 wins is kind of tough to say. I don't really know, but Jackson State is on this tier, followed by Alabama State and Prairie View. Prairie View definitely is a team that I think is going to win at least 6 or 7 games. Alabama State, it can happen, but I'm not really 100% sold on that because they have some holes to fill. I think, I mean, like I said, I don't want to, I don't really want to who are going to win 8 games or more. And somebody from the SWAC is going to win 8 games or more. FAMU most likely will. I think Jackson State can win 8 games or more. I mean, it's not impossible for Southern to win 8 games or more. They do play 11 SWAC games, so they don't necessarily have a schedule that's impossible to beat, impossible to win. So, if the pieces fall right, then I think Southern could have an 8-win season. I mean, hell, they won 7 last year with horrible quarterback play, so it's not impossible. But I don't know if I'm really feeling how these tiers are going. The next tier is the unproven potential tier, and this is teams in the year that have a chance at being better than last season, looking to surprise, rise up conference standings. However, until they prove it on the field, they stay put. In the SWAC, there's Alabama A&M, Alcorn, and Texas Southern. So I mean, obviously, I've said it already. Alcorn is going to be my number 1 team heading into the SWAC, heading to number 1 SWAC West team heading into the season. I think Texas Southern will be much improved. Alabama A&M, I'm not sure, if they're going to rise or fall. So, other than that, I can see Texas Southern and Alabama A&M in this tier. Alabama A&M, I don't know if they would be able to jump to that next tier, but I do think Texas Southern could jump to that previous tier, the good but not great. So, I don't really have a lot of problems with this one. Alcorn is definitely, for me, the one that I would not have there. But like they said, until they do it this season, that they can't, you don't move them. So it is not a bad tier to, as opposed to the first one. And then the next tier is the meh tier. Use the meh emoji. These are teams who are probably gonna win 4 or 5 games. They'll probably be competitive in most games. They're not the worst. They're not good. They, kind of. So for the SWAC, that would be Grambling. Grambling would be the only SWAC team on the list in this tier. And I think Grambling can be anywhere. To me, Grambling's a wild card. They can have a really, really strong, that they fit here. I don't necessarily have a problem with that right now, but I do think Grambling's going to be in the mix for the West Division. In my way too early West prediction, I put them 5th, so I guess that slates them here. But they could easily finish anywhere above 5th place. So that's a good. I guess it's a good starting spot for them. And then the bottom tier is teams who had really bad records last season, and they're probably going to be in the same spot, and that would be Pine Bluff, Valley, and Bethune-Cookman. So basically the 3 teams that are going to be most people's picks to finish in the lower portion of the conference. So not really bad on that part. Honestly, there's like 4 teams that I would move around on this list, and I don't really think anybody in the conference would necessarily be under the playoff contenders tier, unless you put Jackson State on there, because if they don't win the SWAC, I think they do have a good chance, provided that they beat South Carolina State and they beat they beat Southern out of conference, and they can beat Texas State. Then that will give them a really strong resume and a chance to make it. But other than that, the 2 teams on this list I don't think are going to the. One I know is not going to the playoffs, and the other one I don't think they'll go if they don't make it. But it's also basically it also entails 8 wins and a possible top 25 team. So I'm not really, like I said, a lot of it is my bias against Southern right now. I'm not really comfortable with putting them in that realm. So I would probably swap them and Alcorn, and then put Jackson State in that tier. But it's not once I really went through it and kind of read the criteria, it's not that bad of a list. I was mainly thrown off more about that tier. But the rest of it is pretty solid. So once you go ahead, if you get a chance, take a look at it. And like I said, I'm gonna link it in the description. You can check it out and see what's what, and how you feel about it. Obviously, it's a lot to unpack, but it's May and it's talking season. So jumping from that, I'm not gonna really necessarily go schedule by schedule right now. I'm gonna say that for my preview. So I'm just gonna throw out these numbers, and you can say whether you feel like the team's gonna finish over this number or under this number, or they'll push and finish even on this number. So starting with the East Division, I picked Jackson State and FAMU both at 8.5 wins. That's basically saying that they are probably gonna lose a couple games here and there, but they're gonna be very solid teams. Obviously, if you feel stronger about a team, you can probably put 9 or 10. But I wanted to hedge because, like I said, Jackson State right now, at this point, we don't really know. They can finish. Jackson State can easily finish with a very, very good record. They could honestly, if they beat FAMU, they could run the table in the SWAC if this team gels. It's kind of a repeat of how I approached the 2021 season. They finished strong, but going into the season, we didn't necessarily know how this team was going to play. So crown them, that's not to put them in a dungeon, but right now I think 8.5 is a safe number for them. And FAMU, same thing. The two games that really worry me for FAMU are Jackson State and USF. West Florida is a potential trap game, but they've taken some losses. We'll kind of look at that deeper when we get to that game, but that's still a dangerous game. So if you put that game as I don't like to call a D2 game a toss up, especially when you're talking about a team that's a division contender. But this is a top this is typically a top tier D2 team, and they have proven in past years that they can beat FCS teams. So I wouldn't just 100% call it a win. Other than that, there's a couple games that are potentially dicey. I think, fam, you can navigate both of them games. Jackson State, their non East Division opponents are Texas Southern, Alcorn, and Pine Bluff. So they should basically come out of that portion really strong. Alcorn, I think, is going to be the toughest challenge out of their West Division opponents. Strictly just because it's a rivalry, and last year Alcorn did get them a go. They just couldn't get over the hump. But I think 8.5 is a solid number for both of those teams. Kind of playing it a little safe, but not going too crazy with it. Those are the two highest win totals of anybody in the conference. So everything else is all down from here. Alabama and them, I put them at 6, mainly because I think they have a bunch of games that you could consider toss-up games. They also have 2 D2 games that they hopefully should win. So I think they're one of the teams that has the most certain wins. And basically what I did was I went through the schedule and looked at teams, and I either gave them a certain win or a certain loss. And then a toss-up game, I gave a team a half a point for that. So A&M, I think they have a few certain wins to me, like Pine Bluff, Bethune-Cookman, I think so, and the 2 D2 teams. Now, Tuskegee and Lane are not going to be easy, but I think they should be favored to win those games. You have FBS game in there, so you kind of can look at that however you that are probably gonna be certain losses, and then a few toss-up games. So I think 6 is a good number. I mean, last season they finished under that, so I think they have the potential to do that. I think the Magic City Classic is probably going to be the biggest game on this list that impacts if they finish above 5 wins. You also get Southern out of conference, so that doesn't really affect you too much. Next is Alabama State, and I put the Hornets at 5.5. They won 6 games last year, and I mean, it's really hard to say, what they're, how losing Merritt and some of those other guys are going to impact this team, but I think it's going to have an impact, especially early. So you like I said, you got Southern at home to open up the season, the Miles, and then FAMU and Alcorn. So that's a tough start. I mean, especially with a team that didn't have the greatest offense last season. I think the defense is still going to be solid, but I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year. So that can those kind of things can lead to a team starting slow. If they don't, they finish less than 2-2 in their first 4 games, then that 5 might be pushing it. But like I said, so I think you have 2. I think I said 2 or 3 certain losses, but then you get Tuskegee and Miles as 2 teams that I know for sure should be wins. Bethune-Cookman on that list, and then everything else other than the 3 certain losses are toss-ups. But like I said, 5.5 is not a bad number. I mean, that's pretty safe. 6 can be attainable. I mean, 6 is not a out of the box number for them. 7, I think, is going to be pushing it a little bit, but I think it all depends on how this team starts. If they start slow, then 5 is probably going to be the ceiling for them. If they get off to a pretty solid start, then 6 or 7 could easily be attainable, and that leads us to Valley. I put them at 2.5, and that entails a couple upsets. This team has lost some guys, new coaching staff. Yeah, they're energetic, and I'm loving their energy. But their on the field schedule is not as hard as it typically has been. But you got to go to Delta State. They beat you last year. You got to go to them. That's going to be a tough game. You get North Carolina Central in Indianapolis. That's going to be a tough game. The only games I could really see them being favored right now are Central State, Pine Bluff, and Bethune-Cookman. And I do think you may drop one of those two. So honestly, I said 2.5, but I could say 3. Because I don't know if they're gonna. I hate to say that, but I don't know if they're gonna beat Delta State. I haven't really looked too deep into Delta State this season. I know they were, really solid as usual last year. So just sitting here now, if you were to say, if you one of them people that be like, D2, that's a dub, then I can see you saying Valley can finish with 4 wins if they win their 2 D2 games and beat Pine Bluff and beat Valley. Those are 2 games. That's a good window to 4 wins. It's not a tough window to 4 or 5 wins if some chips fall right for Valley. But I played it a little safe and I said 2.5 because I think this team doesn't play great away from home, and they have to break that identity. And some of the tougher games are on the road. You got to go to Alabama A&M. Yes, you beat them at home last year, but you got to go to them. You got to go to Bethune-Cookman, which still is a road game. And like I said, Valley doesn't. They don't always play great away from home. You got to go to Alcorn. You got to go to Prairie View, who you had their number, but you got to go to them this season. You get Central in a neutral site. You got to go to Delta State, and you got Central State in neutral site. So not a really easy schedule, a schedule conducive to wins at home. So I think that 2.5 number is a pretty solid number. Not as optimistic as I could have been. And Bethune-Cookman rounds out the East Division at 1.5. They have two FBS games, so that's automatically without even taking into account depth and what this team is working with. That's 2 games that they're obviously going to be heavily underdogs in. Jackson State is also in their first 4 games of the season, so they must beat Savannah State to give themselves any chance of anything. Because other than that, the schedule is tough. You get Alabama State on the road, you get Texas Southern at home, you play Southern wherever you're playing them. Ain't nobody said nothing yet, but you get Southern wherever you're playing them. You get Grambling on the road. You do get Valley at home, then you close out at home against Alabama A&M, and then Florida A&M in the Florida Classic. So not a lot of games that I could look at and say this team is favored in this game. And the only game that I see them as favored in is Savannah State. Valley, I think, is a toss-up. So that's where my 1.5 comes at. I can't say that it's impossible for them to not win any of the other games. This is the SWAC. Crazy things happen. But sitting here right now, I say 1.5. So I think 2 or 3, it would be a great thing for not. I know 3 wins sounds crazy to say it's a great thing, but with what this team is looking at right now and the perception that a lot of people have of this team, 3 wins would be a really good thing to build on for next season. So 1.5, I think, is a pretty decent number for them. To go into the season. Like I said, obviously, teams are adding guys pretty much up until a certain point in the summer. So these teams can look a lot different now than they will then, because you never know who teams are adding in the portal, and teams still have guys coming in that they signed during the signing period who weren't there for the springtime. So there's there may be some shakeup in some of these teams, and that can be good or bad. But we'll see how much of a difference it makes when we get to around media day. I may take another look at these around that time, and I might revise them a little bit, but for the most part, I think they're going to stay where they're at. I'm gonna post these on my socials just to keep them, keep them now and keep them visible. The next team on our list is to start the West Division, and that's Alcorn. I put Alcorn at 7 wins, and that's, they have a lot of games that I think are toss-ups. And Southern Miss is not a great team, and most years with a really veteran team, I would give a SWAC team a puncher's chance in this game. But right now, you're starting a new quarterback on the road. Most likely you're starting a new quarterback on the road game one. You still have, you have some guys that you lost. It's not really a good game to break in guys. So, I don't know how, they're going to attack this game. Obviously, they're going to come to win, but I don't know how they're going to attack this game right now. So, I look at it as, an FBS game. You get Stephen F. Austin and McNeese back-to-back. You beat McNeese last year. You got a good shot at doing that again. You should have beat Stephen F. Austin. So I think you'll have an opportunity. They have 2 games on the schedule that I would pencil in as games that I feel like they are favored in, are highly favored in, and that's Valley and Pine Bluff. Everything else is a toss-up. You get Prairie View at home. You got to go to Alabama State. You get Grambling at home, who beat you last year, even though Grambling wasn't good. They beat you last year pretty solidly. You get Southern at home for the first time in a long time, and that's a game that Southern don't play well in Lorman. They only won there once, and that was once in the last, I don't know. Last time they won in Lorman was like 2016. So, that definitely favors you. You get Texas Southern on the road. They did beat you, and then you close out at Jackson State. So, not an easy schedule, but a lot of games that I feel like are toss-up games. So that's why I came up with the number 7. Obviously, those 2 non-conference games, Stephen F. Austin and McNeese would probably go a long way in impacting that number. You split that, then I think 7 or 8 is very attainable. If you win a division, then you may win 8 games. I think I think it's just gonna depend on that stretch and then that closing stretch. Nothing is easy. That opening 6 games of the season are very tough. All those teams are tough for Alcorn for various reasons. So how they navigate those 6 games are going to dictate the rest of that. And those 6 games are probably going to impact more of that 7 wins than any other portion of the schedule. And then that takes us to the team I have as my number 2 team in the West, and that's Prairie View. And I put them at 6.5. Again, this is a team who has the opportunity to win more games. They do have 2 FBS opponents, 2 FCS opponents in Texas. It's Abilene Christian and Houston. Abilene Christian and Houston Christian. 1 at home, 1 on the road. I think you have a great chance at both of those games. You play SMU on the road for your FBS game. You got, like I said, you got to go to Alcorn and Texas Southern to open up the season. Grambling in the State Fair Classic, Valley. So the first, your first 7 games before your off week are very tough. I give them a highly favored matchup against Valley, but Valley's had their number the last 2 years. Who knows if that's gonna continue? But that's out of the first 7 games, that's the only game I have them as a certain favorite, and the other one is Pine Bluff in the last couple games of the season, because the last 4 of your games, 2 of them on the road, 2 are at home. You got to go to Bragg, which is always tough, and you got to go to Southern, which is typically a tough place to play. So, like I said, a lot of toss-up games, only a couple certain wins and 1 certain loss, or highly favored loss, however you want to look at it. So 6.5, I think, is a pretty solid number. Again, this is a team who should contend for the division. So just by nature of doing that, you should win at least 6 games if you finish high in the division. Like I said, those 2 FCS non-conference games are going to go a long way in impacting that number. And then that takes us to our 3rd team in the West, and that's Texas Southern. I put them at 6 wins. They can finish higher, if a lot of things fall into place, and this team again contends for contends for the West, they're gonna win more than 6 games. They get Toledo and Rice in non-conference play. Um, Rice is one of those teams you never know, man. If you can get them in a shootout, you never know what might happen. Toledo's tough at home, so that's a kind of different breed. You get Lincoln for your other non-conference games, so that's one win and 2 games that I think you'll be underdogs in your non-conference. Prairie View and Grambling are your first 2 SWAC games. Big games, definitely going to impact that 6 number. I do think Bethune-Cookman is a game that you'll be favored to win, and Pine Bluff as well. Other than that, you get a 4-game stretch of FAMU, Southern, Jackson, and Alcorn. That's not an easy 4-game stretch. If you don't start off with if you don't get a great start in those first 5 games, those 4 games can definitely be a tough run for you. They're sandwiched between two games that you are favored in. So that's why I came up with the number 6. It's still quite a few toss-ups, but I think their road slate is pretty tough. And then that takes us to our number 4 team, and that's Southern. Again, Southern plays an all SWAC schedule except for Lincoln, so it's not necessarily that they're playing teams that are head and shoulders above them. But I mean, this team has a lot of questions, so I think they're going to drop a couple games, especially earlier. FAMU is a team that gives Southern fits all the time, no matter who the coaches or players are. That's a team that they routinely, historically, have struggled against. And the last 2 years, they have not looked good against FAMU. Jackson State is going to be a tough matchup early in the season. Bama State's not going to be easy in the first game. You also get Texas Southern at home, which is not going to be easy. You get Alcorn, Prairie View, and Grambling to close out their schedule. So that 4-game stretch at the end of the season is going to be tough. You do get Bethune-Cookman, which should be a win for you. You get Lincoln and Pine Bluff in a stretch with FAMU in that mix. So you're like I said, there's a lot of toss-up games in this. Not a lot of games where I think Southern is automatically favored. So that's why I feel like 6 is a solid number. Again, these teams are teams I think are going to contend for the division. So 6 wins, it probably can be made up almost by your conference play. And one thing to help Southern in that aspect is Jackson State. I think Jackson State, Alabama State, Alabama and them, I believe, are not conference games. So those games are gonna affect your overall record, but they don't necessarily stop your conference record. So this is a team that if they put the pieces together, the way the rest of the conference schedule shapes up, they could finish 6-2, and then lose 3 games, and finish 6-5. You know what I mean? Well, they could finish 6-2 and then lose 2 non-conference games or whatever it is, and finish 6-5 or 7-4. So 6 wins is pretty safe. I think like I said, a lot of it just hinges on how they do in conference play. If they finish like 4-4, then they're gonna have to win all their non-conference games. So that makes for it's not a tough schedule when you look at you're not playing a lot of teams that are more highly favored. You'll be higher underdogs against, but these are teams that are all conference opponents and all could be in the mix. So you have some tough games there that are going to be tough to navigate, and you have a couple games that might be easy, but they may not be. So 6, I think, is a safe number for Southern. And then that takes us to Grambling, who I also had at 6 wins. I think Grambling is a team who can finish higher than where I got them at. They play LSU in their as their FBS game, so that's a tough task. LSU gonna be a top 10 team in the FBS this season. You open up with Hampton, that's a winnable game. You get Florida Memorial, that's definitely a win. You get Bethune-Cookman and Pine Bluff, so you have 3 certain wins right there. Everything else other than LSU is a toss-up game. You don't play Jackson State, you don't play FAMU, so your you're in pretty good shape. You know, I mean, you don't play either of the two toughest teams in the East, so you're playing a lot of middling teams. So you have a great chance of getting to 6 wins again. Conference division contender is probably going to finish with at least 6 wins. So you find yourself in a good spot. This is a very favorable schedule for Grambling. Like I said, LSU is the only super tough game on the schedule. They can win. They can win every game other than that one. I mean, I would love for them to beat LSU because why not have a SWAC team beat LSU? But that's 10 other games that you have a really good chance of winning. So this is a schedule that shapes up well for Grambling to finish higher than where I put them at 5th. And then that brings us to Pine Bluff to wrap up everything. I put them at 1.5. Again, like Bethune-Cookman and like Valley, a lot of it hinges on that non-conference game. They play Miles, and that's a game they need to win because the other two non-conference games are Tennessee State in the Southern Heritage Classic and Tulsa, which is an FBS opponent. So you're basically looking at a 1-2 start. If you lose the Miles, then I don't know. You probably won't even beat Valley at that point. So you get one game that I feel like is should be a for sure win, and Valley, which is a toss up. Everything else is going to be tough games for you. You do get a nice stretch of games at home. You get Southern at home, Alcorn, Jackson, and Grambling all at home. So your toughest conference games are at home. I don't know how much that's going to help you, but it should help the gate. You know what I'm saying? You should get a good turnout. Hopefully, I mean, but by the time you play some of these teams, maybe people won't be wanting to come. But I still think that's a great home slate. Other than that, you can take Southern Prairie on the road. You got to go to Alabama A&M. So you get a pretty solid home slate, somewhat manageable road slate. But I do think that it's going to be tough to pick up wins at this point. So 1.5, I think, is a solid number. If they lose to Miles, then I don't even know if 1 is going to be a number. But that's going to do it for today's show. Those are my estimated win totals for the conference. Again, we'll start and run through them really quick. I got Jackson State and FAMU both at 8.5. Alabama A&M at 6. Alabama State 5.5. Valley 2.5. Bethune-Cookman 1.5. In the West, Alcorn 7. Prairie View 6.5. Texas Southern 6. Southern 6. Grambling 6. And Pine Bluff 1.5. So in the comments, man, let me know, do you think I'm off base on some of these? What are your numbers for some of these teams? How many games you think your favorite team is going to win? Again, I'm going to put these on my socials at some point tonight. So you can always check them out and see them now. And that's going to do it for today's show. Again, make sure y'all support the Patreon, man. Patreon.com/SWAC Talk. Got $3 and $5 tiers. Support the show. Help us continue to grow. And subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to do that. And that's going to do it for me, man. And I'm going to catch y'all on Thursday for SWAC Smoke. And we up out of here. Peace.